Hello! Today I will be discussing the Bhopal gas disaster in Bhopal, India. This industrial disaster occurred at the Union Carbide India Limited plant, UCIL, which creates pesticides. This creation of pesticides needed a chemical known as methyl isocyanate, MIC. On the night of December 2nd, 1984, the MIC storage container at the plant exploded out into Bhopal. In this presentation, I will discuss the events of December 2nd to December 3rd of 1984, describe the exposed populations and safety systems that should have been in place, discuss the health effects of MIC both short-term and long-term, and finally briefly discuss the immediate aftermath and solutions. Here is the table of contents for the major figures we will be going over to describe these events. On the night of December 2nd, 10:30 p.m. to 11 p.m., the workers at the UCIL found a water leak, tried to trace the source but could not find it. The water leaked into one of the MIC storage tanks, causing an exothermic reaction. This increased the temperature in the tank to 200 degrees Celsius. The boiling point of MIC is 39 degrees Celsius. This high temperature turned MIC from a liquid into a gas, increasing the pressure in the tank. With the pressure increasing, a worker found that MIC was leaking from one of the containers. The concrete cracked, the relief valve gave way, and an explosion of the tank released over 40 tons of MIC into the air. The workers tried to activate the safety systems in place, however these systems failed. By 2 a.m. on December 3rd, a plume of MIC gas surrounded 40 squared kilometers of the area, reaching 120 feet above the ground. By 2:30 a.m., the public siren was sent from UCIL. However, it was not early enough or loud enough to give people proper warning to escape. With this being said, MIC is also known for having poor early detection signs due to its odorless features. Almost immediately, 3,800 people were killed in the exposed areas. In the first 24 hours, 90,000 patients were seen in the major Bhopal hospitals, indicative of the seriousness of the event. This is a map of the affected areas and neighborhoods in Bhopal surrounding the UCIL plant, circled in red. This map also depicts the severity which correlates with the distance from the UCIL plant that was located right next to some of these neighborhoods. The closer you were to the plant, the more severely exposed you were. The first system that was tried was the vent gas scrubber, which neutralizes toxins from the MIC storage, taking them to the flare tower to be destroyed. However, this system had been turned off 3 weeks before this incident. To cool MIC that is being stored, in order to prevent an increase in temperature, a refrigerator unit with coolant was in place. However, the coolant from that refrigerator unit was removed to be used in another system in other plants. In the picture on the left, you see workers trying to spray off MIC from the plant. However, at the time of the exposure, the gas plume was 120 feet above the ground, and the water could not reach it. With these systems working and in place, thousands of lives could have been saved. However, the systems were probably not prepared for that much MIC to begin with. The MIC gas that was leaked created multiple different health effects. In this table, we see exposure levels of MIC in parts per million. The 0.02 indicates the OSHA, NIOSH, and ACGIH permissible exposure limits over an 8 to 10 hour work shift. At 3 ppm, there was no respiratory anomalies among the exposed. However, at 10 ppm, individuals experienced obstructive airway lesions, and at 20 to 30 ppm, over a 10-hour exposure period, individuals experienced severe dyspnea and weakness. Death after this amount of exposure was imminent within 15 to 18 hours. Looking specifically at respiratory effects, a retrospective study looking at the immediate 3-day effects after MIC exposure showed different symptoms experienced by the exposed individuals. Around 36% experienced shortness of breath and breathlessness, 34% experienced cough, around 17% experienced throat irritation or choking, 9% experienced chest pains, and 4.3% experienced hemoptysis, the coughing up of blood or mucus from the lungs or trachea. While respiratory effects were most common and prevalent among the exposed, so were ophthalmic effects. Looking at the long-term effects of MIC exposure, a study found that individuals severely exposed to MIC, moderately exposed to MIC, and mildly exposed to MIC had significantly higher ophthalmic morbidities, including persistent watering of the eyes, lid edema, photophobia, and damage to the cornea compared to the unexposed individuals, especially in 1984. However, over time, these differences became less significant. Lastly, the immune system was found to have been affected by the MIC gas exposure as well. A study conducted 2 decades after the events on December 2nd found that levels of multiple inflammatory cytokines were significantly greater among Group 3, the exposed group, compared to Groups 1 and 2, the unexposed groups, living in Bhopal and living outside of Bhopal, respectively. Higher levels of inflammatory cytokines indicate progression of disease with the presence of multiple white blood cells. IL-8 is an example of an inflammatory cytokine. Keep in mind, this study was conducted 2 decades after the Bhopal gas exposure, which results in a lack of consensus on whether MIC actually caused these outcomes or if they are purely correlation. So who is at fault? Who pays? In March of 1984, the Bhopal Gas Leak Disaster Act was enacted. This act allowed for the government of India to act as a legal representative for the victims of the Bhopal disaster. Shortly after, the Union Carbide Corporation, UCC, which owned more than 50% of the UCIL, paid a $470 million settlement given to the Indian government and distributed to those affected. However, this deal with the UCC made meant that they were not liable for any other claims past the $470 million paid. This event also paved way for the United States Superfund Amendments and Reauthorization Act, also known as SARA, requiring annual toxic release inventories to be created and made public to communities, as well as requiring reports of leaks, spills, and quantities of chemicals of interest. In summary, the events of December 2nd and 3rd in 1984 had lasting impacts on not only the individuals affected and exposed as well as their families, but also the way the world viewed toxic chemicals and the storage of these chemicals. While MIC has correlated with morbidity and mortality rates over the years, there is a lack of consensus on whether MIC is the direct cause of deaths around this time period or after. The settlement helped families and individuals affected, however, a need for a safer and more accountable system was realized. The creation of SARA provided hope for a safer, communicative, and accountable environment for individuals and corporations. I hope you found this moving and informative. Thank you.